She had nothing, no family, no food, no hope. But one night, everything changed.
Before you continue, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this powerful story.
The night was quiet. Too quiet. A soft wind slipped through the broken edges of a small wooden window, brushing gently against the face of a young girl sitting alone in the corner of a dimly lit room. Her name was Emily. She couldn't have been more than 12, but her eyes carried a weight no child should ever know. In her trembling hands was a worn-out photograph, its edges torn, its colors fading with time. She held it like it was the only thing keeping her alive, her parents. She stared at their smiling faces, her fingers gently tracing over them, as if she could feel them again. But she couldn't. They were gone. Gone in a single day. A day Emily wished she could erase from her memory forever. A tear slipped down her cheek, then another, and another. Soon the silence in the room was filled with the quiet sound of a child trying not to cry too loudly, because even her pain had learned to be careful. Emily! The sharp voice shattered the moment. She flinched instantly, quickly wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Her heart began to race. "Emily, where are you?" The voice came again, louder this time, colder. I'm here," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The door creaked open. Standing there was her aunt, Margaret. Her face was hard, her eyes carried no warmth, only irritation. "What are you doing sitting there?" Margaret snapped, her arms folded tightly across her chest. Emily quickly stood up, clutching the photo behind her back like a secret she wasn't allowed to have. I finished the chores," she said softly. Margaret stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. "Finished?" she repeated, her tone laced with disbelief. "Did you clean the kitchen properly? Or were you sitting here daydreaming again?" Emily shook her head quickly. "I cleaned it, I promise." Margaret scoffed. "You better have, because in this house you don't sit around doing nothing." Emily lowered her head. "Yes, ma'am." From behind Margaret, laughter echoed through the hallway. A boy, about the same age as Emily, walked past casually, holding a piece of bread in one hand. This was Daniel, Margaret's son. He didn't even look at Emily, didn't acknowledge her existence. He simply took another bite of the bread and disappeared into his room, as if the girl standing a few feet away wasn't human enough to notice. Emily's eyes followed him for just a second. Then she quickly looked away. Margaret noticed. Her expression darkened. "Why are you staring at him?" she snapped. Emily froze. I wasn't. "Don't lie!" Margaret cut her off sharply. "You think you deserve what he has?" The words hit harder than any slap. Emily's lips trembled. "No." Margaret stepped closer, her voice dropping into something colder, more dangerous. "Let me make something very clear," she said slowly. "You are here because we allowed it, not because you belong here." Emily felt her chest tighten. "You eat our food. You sleep under our roof. The least you can do is work for it." Emily nodded quickly, her eyes already filling with tears again. "Yes, ma'am." Margaret stared at her for a moment longer, then turned and walked away. The door slammed shut behind her. Silence returned, but this time it felt heavier. Emily stood there unmoving. Her hand slowly came forward, revealing the photograph again. She looked down at it, but her vision was blurred, not because of the dim light, because of the tears she could no longer hold back. "They said I would be safe here," she whispered, her voice breaking. Her knees gave way, and she sank slowly to the floor. "I thought they would love me." Her shoulders began to shake, but I was wrong. Tears fell freely now, no more hiding, no more silence. Just pain. Raw, deep, aching pain. Outside, the wind grew stronger, rattling the window slightly, as if the world itself could feel her loneliness. Emily hugged the photograph tightly to her chest. It was all she had left, her only proof that once upon a time she was loved. Minutes passed, or maybe longer. Time didn't seem to matter anymore. Then, slowly, Emily lifted her head. Her eyes, though filled with tears, held something else now, something small, something fragile, hope. She wiped her face gently and looked upward. "Mom, Dad," she whispered. Her voice was soft but steady. "If you can hear me," a pause, "please send someone." Her fingers tightened around the photo. "Someone who will care." Another tear fell. "Someone who will see me." The wind outside suddenly went still. The room became quiet again, too quiet. Emily closed her eyes. "I don't want to be alone anymore." And in that silence, in that fragile moment between despair and hope, something shifted. Not in the room, not in the house, but somewhere far beyond what Emily could see. Because sometimes the prayers spoken in the deepest pain are the ones that change everything. The morning came, but for Emily it brought no comfort, only work. Before the sun had even risen, she was already awake. The house was still quiet, wrapped in the soft darkness of dawn, but Emily moved carefully, almost silently, like someone who had learned that even the smallest noise could bring trouble. Her bare feet touched the cold floor as she stepped into the kitchen. She didn't stretch, she didn't yawn, she just started working. Sweeping, washing, scrubbing. Her small hands moved quickly, efficiently, as if she had done this 1,000 times before, because she had. Outside, the sky slowly turned from black to gray. Inside, Emily was already tired, not from the work, but from the life she had no choice but to live. A loud voice suddenly broke the silence. "Emily!" She froze. The broom in her hand stopped mid-sweep. "I'm coming, ma'am," she called quickly, dropping the broom and rushing out. In the living room, Margaret sat comfortably, fanning herself lazily. "Why's my tea not ready?" she snapped, without even looking at Emily. I was just about to make it," Emily replied softly. Margaret's eyes shot up. "Just about?" she repeated sharply. "So what have you been doing since morning? Sleeping?" Emily shook her head quickly. "No, ma'am, I was cleaning." "Excuses!" Margaret cut her off. "Go and bring it now, and make sure it's hot." "Yes, ma'am." Emily hurried back to the kitchen, her heart pounding. Her hands trembled slightly as she lit the stove. Moments later, she carefully carried the tray back. Margaret took a sip, then suddenly frowned. Before Emily could react, splash! The hot tea was thrown straight at her. Emily gasped as it hit her arm. The cup fell shattering on the floor. "I said hot!" Margaret shouted angrily. "Are you trying to poison me?" I'm sorry," Emily cried, clutching her arm in pain. "I didn't mean—" "Clean that mess," Margaret snapped, standing up. "Useless girl." Emily dropped to her knees immediately, ignoring the burning pain as she began picking up the broken pieces with her bare hands. Her vision blurred, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. From the hallway, Daniel walked out, fully dressed for school. His uniform was neat, clean, perfect. He yawned lazily, adjusting his bag over his shoulder. "Mom, I'm going," he said casually. Margaret's entire tone changed instantly. "All right, my dear," she said sweetly. "Have a good day at school." Emily paused for just a second. Just 1 second. Her eyes lifted slightly, watching him, watching the life she once had. Then, "Why are you staring again?" Margaret snapped. Emily quickly lowered her head. "I'm sorry." Daniel didn't even notice. Or maybe he just didn't care. The door closed behind him, and just like that, the world returned to what it was. Harsh, cold, unfair. Hours later, the sun stood high in the sky. Emily walked slowly through the busy market, a tray of goods balanced carefully on her head. Ground nuts, sachet water, small snacks. Her steps were slow, weaker than usual. Her body still ached from the morning. "Buy pure water, fresh ground nuts," she called out softly. But her voice lacked energy. People passed by her. Some ignored her. Some brushed past her without a glance. To them, she was invisible. A young girl trying to survive in a world that had already decided she didn't matter. Sweat rolled down her face under the harsh sun. Her legs felt heavy. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten, not this morning, not last night. Still, she kept walking, because stopping wasn't an option. Back at the house, the day was calm, peaceful. Margaret rested comfortably, the fan spinning lazily above her, a plate of food beside her, and inside his room, Daniel lay on his bed, scrolling through his phone, laughing at something on the screen. No chores, no stress, no hunger. 2 children, same house, different worlds. The sun began to set, the sky painted in shades of orange and gold. Emily walked home slowly, her tray still not empty. Fear crept into her chest with every step. "I didn't finish," she whispered to herself. Her fingers tightened around the tray. What will she do this time? Her heart pounded louder. Step by step, she approached the house. The door stood ahead, waiting. Her breath grew shallow. Then slowly she pushed it open. Margaret turned immediately. Her eyes dropped to the tray, then back to Emily. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. "You didn't finish?" she asked coldly. Emily's voice shook. "I tried, but—" Slap! The sound echoed through the room. Emily stumbled, nearly falling. "I don't want excuses," Margaret shouted. "You are too slow, too useless." "I'm sorry," Emily cried softly, but the apology meant nothing. It never did. Margaret grabbed her arm tightly. "Maybe hunger will teach you to be faster," she said harshly. Emily's eyes widened slightly. "No dinner for you tonight." Her stomach tightened painfully, but she didn't argue. She couldn't. "Yes, ma'am," she whispered. That night, the house was quiet again, but this time the silence felt heavier than ever. Emily lay on a thin mat, her body curled slightly, her stomach aching, her arm still burning, her heart exhausted. Tears slipped silently into her ears as she stared into the darkness. No one came. No one asked if she was okay. No one cared. She turned slightly, pulling her knees closer to her chest. Her voice came out as a whisper, barely there. "God." A pause. "I'm tired." Another tear rolled down. "I don't understand why this is happening." Her fingers tightened slightly against the mat. "But, please," her voice trembled, "don't forget me." Silence answered her, but deep within that silence, her story was only just beginning. The morning felt different, not quieter, not louder, just heavier. Emily could feel it the moment she opened her eyes. She lay still on her thin mat, staring at the cracked ceiling above her. For a few seconds she didn't move. It was the only moment of peace she would get. Then reality returned, slowly, painfully. She sat up. Her body ached from the previous day. Her arm still stung slightly from the hot tea. Her stomach felt hollow, but she said nothing. She always said nothing. Outside her small room, she could already hear movement, footsteps, voices. Life continuing, without care. Emily stood up quietly and reached for something hanging on a nail by the wall, her school uniform. She held it gently, carefully, like something fragile that could disappear at any moment. The fabric was old, slightly faded, but clean. She had washed it herself many times, because it mattered, because it meant something, because it was her only connection to a life that once felt normal. A small smile almost formed on her lips. Almost. She imagined herself sitting in class again, holding a pen, listening to a teacher, learning, becoming something. Her fingers tightened around the uniform slightly. "Emily!" The voice snapped her out of it. Her heart skipped. "I'm coming, ma'am," she replied quickly, hanging the uniform back in place. But this time, she hesitated. Her eyes lingered on it, just for a second longer, then she turned and walked out. The living room was already busy. Margaret stood with her hands on her hips, her face serious. Uncle Richard sat quietly on a chair, his expression unreadable. Daniel stood nearby, adjusting his school bag, looking bored as usual. Emily stepped in slowly. You called me, ma'am? She asked softly. Margaret didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at Richard, then back at Emily. Something about that look made Emily's chest tighten. From today, Margaret finally said, her voice flat, you will not be going to school anymore. Silence. The words hung in the air like something unreal. Emily blinked. I don't understand, she said quietly. Margaret crossed her arms. It's simple. There's no money for your school fees anymore. Emily's heart began to pound. But I can help, she stammered. I can work more. I can... Enough, Margaret snapped. Emily flinched. There is no discussion, Margaret continued coldly. We have our own child to take care of. Emily's eyes slowly shifted toward Daniel. He stood there, dressed, ready, going to school, like always. Her voice came out smaller this time. Then, why is he still going? The question slipped out before she could stop it. The room went still. Margaret's expression hardened instantly. Are you questioning me? She asked dangerously. Emily shook her head quickly. No, because he is our son, Margaret shouted, and you are not. The words hit like a blow. Emily felt something inside her chest crack. Uncle Richard shifted slightly in his seat, but said nothing. Not a word, not even a glance. That silence hurt more than anything. Emily's eyes filled with tears. But I want to learn, she whispered. Her voice trembled. I want to go to school. Margaret laughed bitterly. Dreams don't feed you, she said. Work does. Emily's hands slowly clenched at her sides. From now on, Margaret continued, you will focus on the market and the house. That is your life. No room for argument, no room for hope, just a decision, already made. Daniel walked past her casually. Bye, Mom, he said, heading toward the door. Margaret's tone softened instantly. Take care, my dear. The door opened, then closed, and just like that, Emily's world changed forever. She stood there, still, silent, as if her body hadn't caught up with what just happened. Then slowly, her legs moved back to her room, step by step, each one heavier than the last. She reached the wall, her hand lifted, and took the uniform down. She stared at it for a long time. Her fingers ran over the fabric. This wasn't just clothing, it was her dream, her future, her escape, and now it was gone. A tear fell onto the fabric. Then another, her grip tightened. No, she whispered. Her shoulders began to shake. No, please. Her voice cracked completely. I don't want this. She sank slowly to the floor, still holding the uniform tightly. I don't want this life. Her tears fell freely now. No hiding, no silence. Just heartbreak, raw and overwhelming. That night, the house was quiet again, but Emily wasn't inside. She sat just outside, near the wall, looking up at the dark sky. The stars were faint, barely visible, but she kept staring, as if searching for something or someone. Her knees were pulled close to her chest, her arms wrapped around them, small, fragile, alone. God, she whispered. Her voice was weak, but desperate. Why is this happening to me? No answer, only the soft sound of the night. I didn't do anything wrong. A tear slid down her face. I just want to learn. Her lips trembled. I just want a chance. Silence. Then slowly, she lowered her head, tears falling freely. Please. Her voice broke. Send someone. Her fingers tightened against her arms. Anyone. A long pause, then a whisper, barely audible. I don't want to suffer like this anymore. The wind blew softly, wrapping around her like something unseen, and somewhere, far beyond what Emily could imagine, her cry did not go unheard. The sun rose slowly, but for Emily it felt like the night had never ended. Her body burned, her throat was dry, and every breath felt heavier than the last. She lay on her thin mat, barely moving, her eyes half open as the early morning light crept into the room. Something wasn't right. Her head ached, her body felt weak. Even lifting her hand felt like too much. She was sick, but there was no one to notice, no one to care. Emily. The voice came suddenly sharp, loud, unforgiving. Her eyes widened slightly, her body flinched. "I'm coming," she whispered weakly, though she hadn't even stood up yet. She tried to sit up. Her arms trembled. Her vision blurred for a second, but still she forced herself up because she had no choice. The kitchen felt hotter than usual, or maybe it was just her. Emily leaned slightly against the wall for support as she tried to wash the dishes. Her hands moved slower today, unsteady, weak. A drop of water slipped from her hand, then another. Her breathing became uneven. She paused, closed her eyes. Just for a second. "Why are you so slow today?" Margaret's voice cut through the air. Emily quickly opened her eyes. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said softly. "I don't feel too well," Margaret scoffed loudly. "Don't start that nonsense," she said dismissively. "There is always something wrong with you when it's time to work." Emily lowered her head. "It's not like that, ma'am. I just—" "Enough," Margaret snapped. "Finish what you're doing and get ready for the market." Emily's heart dropped. "The market?" she repeated quietly. Margaret turned to her, her expression cold. "Yes, or do you think your sickness will feed you?" Emily swallowed hard. Her body already felt like it was giving up, but she nodded. "Yes, ma'am." The sun was unforgiving that afternoon. It burned high in the sky, casting harsh light over the crowded market. Emily walked slowly, her tray resting on her head. But today it felt heavier, much heavier. Her steps were uneven, her breathing shallow. Sweat ran down her face, mixing with the heat and her discomfort. "Buy pure water," she called out weakly. Her voice barely carried. People passed her, unbothered, unaware, or maybe they simply didn't care. Her vision blurred again. The ground seemed to shift slightly beneath her feet. She stopped, just for a moment. Her body swayed. A woman brushed past her, nearly knocking her off balance. "Watch where you're going," the woman snapped. "I'm sorry," Emily whispered, steadying herself. But her strength was fading, slowly, painfully. Back at the house, Margaret sat comfortably again, a cold drink in her hand, a satisfied look on her face. Daniel lay stretched out on the couch, laughing at something on television. The fan above them spun lazily, cool, peaceful, a complete contrast to the world outside. The sun began to set. The sky softened, but Emily's condition only worsened. Her tray was still not empty. Her legs felt like they could give out at any moment. Her head throbbed. Her body burned with fever. Still, she walked, step by step, because going back without finishing was worse. When she finally reached home, her hands were shaking. Her legs barely held her up. She stepped inside slowly. Margaret looked up immediately. Her eyes went straight to the tray, still not empty. Her expression darkened instantly. "You didn't finish again?" she asked coldly. Emily tried to speak. I was not feeling well." Before she could finish, slap! The force sent her stumbling sideways. Her tray fell, goods scattered across the floor. "You're becoming very useless!" Margaret shouted angrily. "I'm sorry," Emily cried weakly, struggling to stay on her feet. Margaret grabbed her arm roughly. "I warned you!" she snapped. "The market is your responsibility." "I tried," Emily whispered, her voice breaking. "I really tried." But Margaret didn't listen. She never did. Another blow, this time harder. Emily fell to the ground. Her vision spun. Her body too weak to resist. Tears streamed down her face, but even that didn't stop it. The shouting, the hitting, the cruelty, it poured out without mercy. Later that night, everything was quiet again, too quiet. Emily lay on the floor, her body curled slightly, her breathing shallow, her skin burning with fever. But this time, the pain felt deeper than physical. Something inside her had shifted, something had broken. Tears slipped silently from her closed eyes. No strength left to cry loudly, no strength left to beg. Just Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then slowly, her eyes opened. She stared into the darkness, her expression different now. Not just pain, not just fear, but something else. A quiet decision, a breaking point, a moment where suffering turns into change. Her fingers curled slightly against the floor. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered weakly, the words barely audible, but they carried weight, real weight. Her breathing steadied slightly. "I can't stay here." A tear rolled down. But this time, it didn't feel the same. It wasn't just pain, it was the beginning of something else. Something unknown, something dangerous, something that would change everything. Outside, the wind began to rise. Soft at first, then stronger, as if the world itself was preparing for what was about to come. Because sometimes, when kindness is met with cruelty for too long, it doesn't just hurt, it transforms. The house was silent, too silent. Emily lay on the thin mat in her small, dimly lit room. Her body burned with fever, but her mind was restless. Every slap, every harsh word, every moment of cruelty from Margaret and Richard replayed in her mind like a relentless storm. Her stomach ached, her legs trembled, but her heart. Her heart ached even more. She realized something she had tried not to admit. She could not stay here any longer. Her dreams were gone, her childhood stolen, her life controlled. Tonight, she would take a step she had never dared before. Slowly, silently, she rose. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like thunder. She held her breath as the wind brushed against the window, hearing the distant hum of the fan and the soft snores from Daniel's room. One step, then another. The door to the outside world was her only goal. She grabbed a small bundle of clothes, a little food she had saved, and wrapped it tightly in a worn scarf. The lock on the door was old and stiff. Her fingers shook as she worked it, each turn making her heart pound louder. Click, the door opened. The night air was cool against her fevered skin. A breeze ran through her hair. For a moment Emily paused. She had never been outside at night alone. The streets looked different. Quiet, dark, but free. She slipped out, moving carefully down the narrow path behind the house. Each step was deliberate, silent, as though the shadows themselves would protect her. She didn't look back, not once. The market she had walked through daily during the day was now deserted. The stalls were closed. The smell of dust, leftover food, and heat hung in the air. Emily clutched her small bundle tightly, her legs moving as fast as they could without drawing attention. She ran. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. Her fever made her body weak, but adrenaline carried her forward. Every step away from the house was a step closer to freedom. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Emily didn't care. Then she found it. An uncompleted building on the edge of the city. Concrete walls, half-finished rooms, empty and silent. It would be her sanctuary, her hiding place. She slipped inside, careful to avoid the broken metal rods and jagged edges. The night was her shield, darkness her friend. Finally, she sat down on a dusty concrete floor, pulling her knees to her chest. For the first time in days, she exhaled fully. Tears came silently, not from fear, but from relief. She had survived. She had escaped. Her stomach growled, but she didn't care. She had done what no one else would do. She had chosen herself. As the wind howled through the broken windows, Emily closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she felt a flicker of hope. Somewhere beyond the darkness, something awaited her. She didn't know what. She didn't know who. But she would find out, because tonight she had taken her first step toward freedom. And no one, absolutely no one, could take that from her. The first night in the uncompleted building was quiet, but not peaceful. Emily huddled in a corner, her small bundle of clothes clutched to her chest. Her stomach ached from hunger, her fever still high, but her mind buzzed with thoughts she could not quiet. What do I do now? Where do I go? How do I survive? The night stretched endlessly. The only sounds were the faint rustle of the wind through broken walls and the distant barking of a stray dog. Morning came too quickly. The sun was bright, harsh, and revealing. Every shadowed corner of the city seemed alive with danger. Emily knew she couldn't stay here forever. She had to find food, water, work, something to survive. With careful steps, she left the uncompleted building, her bare feet pressed against the warm concrete, then the dusty road. She walked slowly at first, scanning the streets for safety. The market she had once walked through by day now seemed like a different world under the sun. Stalls were bustling, vendors shouted, children ran past with laughter. She wanted to scream, she wanted to cry, but she couldn't. Not here, not now. Emily moved to the edge of the market and found a quiet construction site nearby. The workers were men and women, Nigerian Africans carrying bricks, mixing cement, hammering wooden planks. Sweat covered their dark skin, muscles glistened in the sunlight. She watched silently from the shadows. Her stomach growled. She couldn't leave without food. She couldn't ask for work. She had nothing to offer. Then a small act of kindness appeared. One of the workers, a young man named Samuel, noticed her lingering at the gate. He wore a worn, dusty shirt, his hands rough and calloused. He approached her cautiously. "Hey, you okay?" he asked gently. Emily flinched. Her eyes darted around, unsure if she was being watched. I'm fine," she whispered, voice barely audible. Samuel smiled faintly. "You look hungry. Come, take some water." Emily's eyes widened. She shook her head. "No, it's okay." But Samuel didn't push. He handed her a small bottle of water anyway, his face kind but tired. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a small spark of trust. She drank slowly, savoring each drop. Her body relaxed slightly, the tension easing from her shoulders. Samuel studied her carefully. "You need work?" he asked softly. Emily hesitated. I can do anything," she said quietly. Samuel nodded. "Good. Come tomorrow. We can find you something." Her heart skipped. Work, a chance to survive, a chance to live. But as the sun rose higher, Emily realized something else. The streets were full of danger. She had to be careful, always. Hunger, heat, thieves. Any one of these could destroy her. Yet for the first time as she returned to her uncompleted building, Emily felt hope under the shadows. She curled into her corner again, clutching her small bundle. The night would come again, but tomorrow might bring her first real chance to fight back against the cruelty she had escaped. And Emily knew she was ready. The city was silent in a way that made Emily's heart pound. The uncompleted building felt colder tonight. Shadows stretched long across the concrete floors, jagged and dark. Emily sat in her corner, small bundle beside her, her stomach still aching from the sparse meals of the day. The work at the construction site had left her exhausted, her hands rough, feet sore, and muscles screaming for rest. Yet sleep would not come. Something deep inside told her. Tonight would be different. A sudden noise broke the silence, a muffled scream from the street below. Emily froze. Her eyes darted toward the broken window. 3 men, their faces partially hidden by masks, were beating someone. The person's body collapsed and twisted under the blows. Emily's heart skipped. She recognized the expensive clothes, the fine shoes. This was someone rich, a young man. The men rifled through his pockets, stole his phone and wallet, and laughed cruelly before vanishing into the darkness. Emily's hands shook. Her pulse raced. Without thinking, she ran down the stairs of the building and out into the street. Her bare feet barely made a sound against the dusty concrete, but adrenaline surged through her, ignoring the pain from the day's labor. She knelt beside the unconscious boy. His breaths were shallow and his body bruised from the beating. "Please, don't die," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible, yet filled with urgency. She tore strips from her worn scarf and tried to stop the bleeding. Panic clawed at her chest, but she forced herself to think. "There's a hospital nearby," she muttered. "You'll be okay. Just hang on." Carrying him was impossible alone. She looked around desperately. Then she saw a small motorcycle taxi passing by. Heart pounding, she waved frantically. The driver slowed, eyes widening as he saw Emily struggling with the limp body. He helped her lift him onto the bike. The ride to the hospital was tense. Emily held him close, whispering words of encouragement, ignoring the stares of people on the street. Inside the emergency room, nurses rushed to take the boy. Emily stepped back, trembling, tears sliding down her face. "Someone found him unconscious," she explained quickly. A doctor nodded, rushing to work on him. Emily turned to leave, her body trembling with exhaustion. But before she could, the boy's eyes flickered open. For a moment, he looked at her, not just seeing her, but recognizing her courage. "Thank you," he whispered weakly. Emily's chest tightened. That single word held more power than anything she had heard in her life. That night, Emily realized something profound. Even in the deepest shadows of life, her actions could change everything. And somewhere in the hospital corridors, a boy who she had never met would never forget the girl who saved him. Tonight, everything changed. The hospital was quieter now, but Emily's mind raced. She had never imagined she would face a night like this, holding a boy she didn't know in her arms, running through the streets and rushing him to safety. Her body ached, her clothes were dusty, and her hands bore the marks of labor and fear. But none of that mattered. He was alive, and she had saved him. The next morning, Emily returned to the construction site, her energy low, but her mind sharper than ever. Samuel noticed immediately. "You look worn out," he said softly, handing her a small bowl of porridge. Emily nodded silently, too tired to speak, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Somewhere in the back of her mind lingered the image of the boy's face, the faint flicker of recognition, the way his eyes had looked at her in gratitude. That night, Emily returned to the uncompleted building to rest, clutching her small bundle. She heard footsteps. Her heart jumped, and there he was, the boy, dressed more casually now, but still unmistakably the one she had saved. I came to see you," he said softly, voice gentle, yet nervous. Emily froze, unsure what to do. She had never been approached like this. "Are you okay?" he asked, stepping closer. "I'm fine," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. Her heart raced. "I wanted to thank you properly," he continued. "Without you, I don't know what would have happened." Emily looked down, embarrassed. She wasn't used to praise. She wasn't used to someone caring. It's nothing," she murmured. But he didn't let it go. He sat down a few feet away, his expression serious but kind. "You took a huge risk," he said. "You didn't have to do it. Most people would have looked away, but you acted." Emily's chest tightened. She had never thought of it that way. I couldn't let him die," she whispered. The boy smiled faintly. "That's courage," he said. "Not many people have that." They sat together in silence for a moment, the sounds of the city faint around them. Emily felt something shift inside her, a strange warmth, trust, safety, and hope. For the first time in her life, she realized that taking a risk could change everything. And maybe, just maybe, this risk would not only save a life, but also change her destiny forever. Days passed since Emily had saved the boy. She continued her quiet life at the construction site, moving among bricks, cement, and dust, her small bundle always with her. Samuel's kindness had become a lifeline, offering food, small jobs, and encouragement. But something gnawed at her. She hadn't seen the boy since that night. Then, one evening, a letter arrived. It was addressed to Emily, written in neat handwriting, folded carefully. Trembling, she opened it. "Emily, I want to see you. I owe my life to you. Please come to Brightstone Estate. Daniel." Her eyes widened. Brightstone Estate. That name sounded familiar, distant, almost untouchable. Her hands shook as she held the paper. The next morning, curiosity and caution battled within her. She decided to go. The journey to Brightstone Estate was like stepping into another world. The streets became cleaner, buildings taller, and everything seemed to shimmer under the morning sun. Emily approached the gates, her heart pounding. A security guard recognized the letter, nodded, and allowed her inside. And then she saw him, Daniel, the boy she had saved. But something was different. He was no longer just a vulnerable young man. He exuded confidence, dressed in expensive clothes, walking with a presence that demanded attention. "Emily," he said warmly, his eyes lighting up. "I'm so glad you came." Emily's lips parted, unsure what to say. I didn't know. I didn't know who you really were." Daniel smiled faintly. "I wanted to tell you in person. I'm the son of Brightstone Holdings. My father owns everything you see here, but none of those matters. Not tonight. Not without you." Emily staggered slightly, shock coursing through her. The boy she had saved from the streets, the one she had risked everything for, was a billionaire. Her mind raced. All those nights of fear, hunger, abuse, and danger. All the streets she had wandered. It had led her here. Daniel stepped closer, gentle but firm. "Emily, I owe you more than I can ever express. You risked your life for me. I don't care about the wealth. I care about you." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. She wanted to scream, to laugh, to cry. All at once, shock, relief, and disbelief collided within her. She realized then that the world she had known, the cruel hands of her uncle and Margaret, the silent nights in the uncompleted building, the harsh sun over the construction site, was behind her. A new world awaited, and it all began because she had dared to act, to risk everything for someone else. Tonight, she understood that courage changes destiny, and destiny had just revealed its shocking truth. Emily stepped into the bright halls of Brightstone Estate, her small frame dwarfed by the grandeur around her. Marble floors gleamed beneath her dusty feet, and sunlight streamed through tall windows, catching the polished surfaces. Daniel walked beside her, his presence calm and reassuring. For the first time, Emily felt safe, not just physically, but emotionally. She no longer carried the weight of fear, hunger, or abuse. She had survived, and she had triumphed. "Emily," Daniel began softly, "you don't know how much you've changed my life. I owe you everything." Emily shook her head, her dark eyes wide with humility. I just did what I had to do," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but her chest swelled with pride she hadn't known before. Daniel smiled, taking her hand gently. "No, you don't understand. You risked your life for me when you had nothing. You showed courage, kindness, and selflessness. That changes everything." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. She had never been praised like this. She had never been seen for who she truly was. The girl who had lived in hunger, fear, and loneliness, the girl who had been beaten, ignored, and forced to survive, was now being recognized for her strength. I don't know what to say," she whispered. Daniel held her gaze. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that you are extraordinary, and I care about you, more than anyone else in the world." Emily's heart raced. She had never imagined anyone could look at her like this, not her cruel uncle, not her peers at the market, not even Samuel, though he had been kind. I care about you too," Emily said softly, her lips trembling into a faint smile. A warmth spread through the room, a quiet moment where past pain melted away, replaced by trust, love, and the promise of a new beginning. Daniel pulled her into a gentle embrace. Emily rested her head on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart, the security of his presence. She felt whole. She felt seen. That day, Brightstone Estate wasn't just a mansion, it was a home, a place of safety, love, and new beginnings. The girl who had survived cruelty, hunger, and loneliness had now changed the life of a billionaire. But more importantly, he had changed hers. The world outside may have been cruel and unjust, but Emily had discovered something invaluable. Her courage, her heart, and her willingness to act could shape destiny itself. From the shadows of uncompleted buildings to the light of Brightstone Estate, Emily had walked a path few could imagine, and in doing so, she had changed everything. And as the sun set over the estate, casting golden light across the gardens, Emily knew that her journey had just begun, but this time she would face it with love, hope, and the man whose life she had saved by her side.
Dear viewers, what lesson did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear from your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.